Movie buffs, welcome back to the Movie Bay. This is D. In today's video, we're going to talk about the Conjuring universe. This is one of my favorite cinematic universes outside of the MCU and the DCU. I think this cinematic universe is probably the only horror cinematic universe. And what do I mean by cinematic universe for those of you who don't know? A cinematic universe is when you have a bunch of different movies on different timelines that all come together under one umbrella. For example, like Marvel, you have Black Panther. He has his own spin-off movie. The Avengers got their own spin-off movie, Doctor Strange, so forth. And the timelines may not actually align in the movie, but somehow they'll just come together. And that's what a good cinematic universe is. And The Conjuring is, and from what I understand, is the first horror cinematic universe. And I hope it's not the last because it's a really good cinematic universe. It's not perfect, but it's really good. Out of the 7 films, I'm going to go ahead and say 5 of them are excellent. Okay. We're going to, now, again, with a cinematic universe, the order of the universe may not be the order in which the movies was released. In fact, a good cinematic universe, the movies are going to come out in different orders, and you'll have to tie it all together. So I got the Conjuring Cinematic Universe here. I have the entire universe that's available right now. More is coming, but let's first, before we go over the order of the universe, let's go in the order of the movies being released. So the movies was released. The first movie that was released was The Conjuring. Okay, I don't want to take it. I want to keep them in order because it's a little tricky. But The Conjuring was the first movie that came out, and as you can see in the cinematic universe, it's actually the 4th movie in the universe, but it's the first movie to come out in theaters. You see how this is working? So The Conjuring is the first movie that came out in theaters, okay? Followed up by Annabelle. That was the 2nd movie in the Conjuring universe, okay? Then I do believe it was The Conjuring 2. Then I do believe it was Annabelle Creation. Then I do believe it was The Nun. Then Annabelle Comes Home. And then the Curse of La Llorona. That always gets me because it's different people pronounce it different ways. And in some countries it's actually called The Curse of the Weeping Woman. So that's the theatrical release schedule, so to speak, for the Conjuring universe. Now let's talk about the actual order of the Conjuring universe. So, in the Conjuring universe, the actual order, not the theatrical release order, is The Nun is actually the first movie in the cinematic universe. And in my opinion, The Nun is the weakest movie out of the whole franchise. It really wasn't all that great, but it explains a lot. This is the origin of Valak, the demon that's present pretty much throughout the whole universe for the most part. Next up in the universe is Annabelle Creation. This is the 2nd movie in the universe. This is where Valak takes hold of the Annabelle doll. Okay, so this is where Valak possesses Annabelle. Annabelle is 12 years after the events of Annabelle Creation. Annabelle, the girl, is grown up, and she joins a cult. She kills her family, and she heard the demon that possessed Annabelle at the end of Annabelle Creation possesses the doll again. The doll is basically a conduit. The demon will go into the doll until it finds someone else to latch onto. Then we have the very first movie that was released theatrically, which is the 4th movie in the franchise, The Conjuring, that introduces the Warrens, world-renowned demonologists. Their house still stands today as, I do believe it's an historical monument. I think the husband passed away not too long ago. I think the wife is still alive, Lorraine. Then we have Annabelle Comes Home is next up. This one is this one comes in right after the events of, I do believe, The Conjuring 2. Okay, so this is going to come in. No, this is Yeah, this is before The Conjuring 2, I think, in the timeline. But this one takes place in the Warrens' home. This one is really good. It's not the best Annabelle movie. Out of the three Annabelles, I still say Annabelle Creation is the best one. But this one slots there in the timeline. This is actually the fifth movie in the timeline, but it's the last movie released in theatrically. Then we have The Curse of Iorona. I do believe this was in the timeline. This is number 6, but this one is right. This one is right after Annabelle Comes Home and right before The Conjuring 2. And then we have the last movie in the timeline, but this isn't the last movie released theatrically. This sums it up for now. This movie is where Lorraine actually do battle with Valak and send Valak back to hell. So this basically ends Valak. This movie is where Valak meets his end, where him and Lorraine have that showdown. Awesome movie. Awesome universe. I just wanted to explain it a little bit. I know I probably didn't explain it the best. Like I said before, there's videos out there that really go into a real detail and they take a long time to explain it. I watched one that was like 20 minutes and it really did a great job explaining the universe. And I love these movies so much. This is definitely one of my favorite horror franchises. Out of the new, I call new horror, the stuff that came out from like the 90s to now, this is definitely one of the better franchises. Actually, all the franchises that I would say that are horror, not slasher, are really good because you have this franchise, you have the Sinister franchise, which is 2 great films, and you have The Grudge. Now, The Grudge came out before both of these franchises, this and Sinister, but The Grudge was an awesome franchise. As far as franchises go, I think those are the 3 best ones since the back in the day horror franchises. There hasn't really been a lot of straight horror franchises. I think a lot of people confuse the slasher genre, like Nightmare on Elm Street, even though that was kind of like Freddy would be considered a demon, but I think the Nightmare on Elm Street movies was more slasher film than anything else. That one is probably considered maybe a hybrid because Freddy was considered a demon, but he also did a lot of slashing. So I would say a lot of the horror genres like Halloween, Friday the 13th, they were considered horror, but if you think about it, they was really slasher films. They wasn't horror films. These are horror films, okay? This here is Sinister, The Conjuring. These are actual horror films, and these are horror franchises. There's tons more horror films, standalone horror films, maybe 1 and 2, but as far as a complete franchise, The Grudge and The Conjuring, because also the Insidious franchise, that is a horror franchise. So right now, I forgot to throw in Insidious. That's another one. Those are, to me, are the 4 top horror franchises that are out right now. Insidious kind of let me down with Last Key. I really didn't care too much for Last Key, but 1, 2, and 3 were excellent. Sinister 1 and 2 were excellent. Again, the Conjuring universe was excellent. The Grudge was excellent, was well done. I enjoyed all 3 of them. I think the first one, of course, was the best one, but 2 was incredible. 3 was good too. I mean, there's a remake to the first Grudge movie in theaters now, or it might be coming out of theaters. It 1 and It 2, It Chapter 1, It Chapter 2. I'm going to go ahead and say, me personally, now I do like the new It movies, but far as It goes, I really prefer the Steven Spielberg version of It, the TV miniseries. I just thought it was better. I mean, now don't get me wrong, the new It, the first one, Chapter 1 was really good, but Chapter 2 was, I'm not going to hate on it. It wasn't terrible. It just wasn't as good. But if you think about it, even on the Spielberg version of It, the kids part was better than the adult part. So that's just the way it worked. I just think the way that story worked, the children's version was better than the adult version. Even in the old Spielberg TV miniseries, or whatever you want to call it, miniseries. Yeah, I think it was a miniseries because I think it ran for almost a week. I think it ran for 3 days or a week. But the kid's story was better than the adult story, and that rings true to today. So that's just my little take on some horror films. of the new horror films. Now, we can talk about older horror films like the Amityville Horror, The Exorcist. Again, there's tons of horror, but I'm talking about the newer stuff from like the mid-90s up until now. I call that the newer stuff. Maybe even, we don't have to go back to the 90s. We could say from the early 2000s up to now. Because I do believe, as far as the new franchises go, it started with The Grudge. And I do believe that came out in like the early to mid 2000s. And we're ending right now with the Conjuring cinematic universe. And this is a universe that is actually going to grow. I do believe they have 2 more movies, maybe 3 more movies slated to come out in the next couple years. There is going to be a 3rd Conjuring movie. There's going to be a spinoff from the character that was in the Conjuring 2. I think it's the Bent Man or something like that. And there's another character from their vault. So there's going to be 2 more spinoffs and another Conjuring movie. So this cinematic universe is going to definitely grow to 10 plus movies within the next few years, because we're at 7 now. So expect 2 to 3 more in the next couple years. So that's my take on the Conjuring universe. That's my take on the modern horror franchises. I think they're all good. Tell me what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.